At this point, we've explored a ton of theories about Left 4 Dead 2, but today I want to approach things from a different angle. What if the green flu wasn't just a fictional virus? What if it actually broke out in the real world in 2025? Would it be a world ending event, or could humanity actually contain it? For those of you watching, yes, we are currently living in the 2025th year of our Lord, and while it would be one hell of a plot twist to see the green flu become real, that's a joke. I really hope it doesn't, or I'd cry. If it did, I'd probably be one of the first to go. But I still want to compare how a real world response to this hypothetical pandemic might play out versus what we see in the game. We're going to dive into key factors like the breakdown of society, the role of information and misinformation, and even reference some real life pandemics from just a few years ago. I don't know if YouTube is cool with me mentioning certain words, but we all know what global event I'm talking about and how it impacted everyone. Right now, the world is more populated than ever, but while our numbers have grown, the planet itself obviously hasn't expanded. That means we're living in the most densely packed conditions in human history. While the population increased from 2009, when Left 4 Dead 2 released, to 2025 isn't massive, it's still worth mentioning, especially since economic struggles mean fewer people are having kids, but what really matters isn't just how many people exist, but how connected they are. In 2025, we're a global society. Communication and travel happen instantaneously. In a world where everything is connected, a virus can spread from one corner of the globe to another in a matter of days. Just look at how quickly the virus that won't be named pandemic spread across borders and continents. With the green flu, there's no doubt that it would spread rapidly, infecting major cities and crossing international borders before anyone could fully comprehend its scope. If we're looking for a real-world comparison, the 2020 pandemic that won't be named was probably the most accurate representation of how humanity responds to a sudden outbreak. Different countries handled it in different ways, but here in the US we saw massive divisions. Some states took it seriously and locked down for nearly 2 years, while others denied its severity altogether. And with a virus, if even one region refuses to contain it, the infection will continue to spread. There's no reason to believe the green flu would be any different, except that it would be far, far worse. The terrifying thing about the green flu is how well it hides in plain sight. Before the events of Left 4 Dead, the virus didn't immediately turn people into monsters. For the first couple of weeks, it looked like nothing more than a severe flu season. And that's exactly why it was named the Green Flu in the first place. There were no immediate signs of extreme mutations or zombies roaming the streets, it was just another seasonal illness. But even in that early stage, it spread like wildfire, eventually wiping out most of the United States. Now, it's important to ask, would the military step in? Oh, absolutely. But would it go smoothly? Not a chance. In the Left 4 Dead universe, the military did try to contain the green flu, but they were constantly playing catch-up. In real life, they'd face the same issue: cities falling in hours, civilians panicking, and supply lines breaking down. And the most dangerous part about the green flu is that you don't know who has it, and by the time you do, they've already infected another 100 people. Obviously that number isn't accurate, but it's an exaggeration meant to show just how effective this virus is at spreading. Quarantine zones might buy some time, but once the virus spreads to multiple major cities, it's virtually game over. The military can't bomb everywhere, and good luck trying to evacuate people when half of them don't believe in the outbreak in the first place until it's too late. Social media would be both a lifeline and an absolute train wreck. On the one hand, we'd have real-time updates, survivor tips, and ways to coordinate safe zones. On the other hand, misinformation would spread faster than the infection itself, and as we've all realized over these last couple years, TikTok brain rot is incredibly strong, and so many people would fall for it that it's actually insane. There would undoubtedly be a plethora of conspiracy theories, people arguing over whether infected individuals still have rights, and at least one guy on the TikTok shop selling a 100% guaranteed green flu cure made of essential oils. And that's not even the tip of the iceberg. So, to put it bluntly, would society collapse in this hypothetical scenario? The short answer, yes, undoubtedly. We'd fall apart, and it would not be great for anyone involved. The long answer, it depends on how fast the green flu spreads. If it stays localized to one region, governments might contain it, but if it gets into global airports, we're looking at a full-blown societal breakdown. I think it's pretty safe to say that the United States would be cooked because, again, viruses have become so politicized here that half of the country would be denying its existence while the other half is playing doomsday preppers in their basement. And let's say in this hypothetical scenario, we're able to find some form of prevention, whether it's a vaccine or a cure after the fact. It would be incredibly difficult to make people take it. The United States is plagued with a massive amount of vaccine hesitancy, and this would absolutely contribute to the green flu's success. And it's not crazy to think that people would see the special infected and assume that they're just hybrids of individuals that have taken the vaccine. I'm sorry guys, we are not exactly the best at education here, and unfortunately a lot of people are terrified of vaccines, cures, and anything to do with the medical industry. I'm starting to realize that this video sounds like a political rant, and that's totally not what it is. I'm really just trying to apply the real world ethics and morality of different things such as vaccines to a hypothetical scenario, and all I have to go off of is our recent influence of the pandemic that we won't be talking about because, again, I don't know if you're allowed to say its name or not. Anyways, the thing about having a cure is that although it could stop individuals from becoming infected, it won't stop a tank from smashing your head through the third floor of your apartment. And it's important to realize that the green flu is very, very volatile. I had this theory a couple months ago in another video talking about why the green flu isn't survivable. Feel free to check that out, link down in the description. Yes, I'm self-plugging. But anyway, the point of that theory was essentially that the green flu itself recognizes when individuals can and cannot be infected, which is why our characters in the Left 4 Dead 2 or Left 4 Dead 1 games are actually smacked or kicked as opposed to bit by common infected. And if you take a look at any of the special infected, it's very clear they're not trying to bite you. The hunter holds you down while he attempts to tear out your intestines, the smoker gives you a love tap from hell, and the charger just beats the ever-loving fuck out of you, and that's just to say a few. The point I'm trying to get across is, the green flu would recognize that people have immunity to it, and when they do, they don't become facets to spread the infection but merely targets to be eliminated. And with a massive prevalence of special infected, such as the tank, which would really be the big one, it's very difficult to stop that flood. Assuming that a vaccine or cure developed for the green flu pandemic is done in record time, it would still take upwards of 11 to 12 months, which as of 2025 is the fastest a vaccine has ever been developed in the history of humankind. That means that you would still have to hold out for just about a year before any type of relief would come through. The Left 4 Dead games, however, take place 2 weeks after the initial infection, and it's very clear that the United States and the world does not have a year. It's important to recognize that while the government is attempting to respond to the green flu, society as a whole would be doing everything in its power to absolutely destroy itself. I think it's pretty safe to say you'd have to expect things such as food shortages because stores would be stripped bare in hours. If you thought the toilet paper hoarding in 2020 was bad, wait until people start looting for survival. It's also safe to say that mass panic would be rampant. Governments issuing lockdowns, riots in the street, and everyone suddenly deciding to become a doomsday prepper doesn't look great for morale. Breakdowns of law and order would also be incredibly rampant because police and military forces would be overwhelmed, and eventually it would become every man for himself, just like we see in the Left 4 Dead games. There's something else that I actually want to address. If you guys have checked out my Is the US Military Secretly Winning video on this channel, you probably recognize that I actually claimed the military was winning. So I bet you're wondering, well, Payne, then why are you saying that the world would end if the virus became a reality? That's because I think the military and remnants of it probably would survive through the infection, but society as a whole would absolutely not survive. I think a massive population decrease is simply part of the green flu, and a majority of people that were infected would end up dying, if not every single one of them. And on top of that, I think the world as a whole would see massive breakdowns of anything we know as a comfort. Now, I want to talk a little bit about countries that aren't the United States, and this is where things get interesting. Unlike in Left 4 Dead 2, the real world has nuclear weapons, biohazard containment units, and massive underground bunkers. It's possible that world governments, particularly those with authoritarian control like China or Russia, would nuke heavily infected regions in an attempt to stop the spread. And I think Russia in particular has a massive geographic advantage due to the simple fact that the country is so goddamn large and people live so far from each other that once the western part of the country, which is where a majority of Russian population is overrun by the infected, that the eastern part of the country would really not see a whole lot of the special infected making it out there. It's got mountains, it's got snow, it's got massive amounts of empty countryside that the infected would have to walk through to get to those individuals. I think the Russian military would probably incredibly effectively stop the infection, whereas countries like the United States, with its massive infrastructure and connecting roadways, would actually suffer from its own success. Another country that I think might actually come out on top due to its isolation is North Korea. In the real world, North Korea is completely isolated. They just recently closed off travel to pretty much any foreign individuals at all, and it's pretty safe to say that with a river in between their country and China, as well as very little other connecting land borders with, nations that aren't heavily regulated, it would be fairly easy to stop the spread. I'm not saying that if the infection made it into the country they could contain it, no, but I think that if they were able to stop it from making it into their country by destroying those connecting landways, it's already pretty clear to us that the infected cannot swim. If you want to, test that for yourself, feel free to go play some verses on the parish, get to the bridge, and as soon as you get the tank, make sure to jump straight into the water. Your team will love you. I really wish I could go more in detail about nations that aren't the US, but unfortunately as an American, I pretty much only paid attention to how our country responded to the recent pandemic that won't be named, and I'm not cultured in the slightest, so I have no idea how well a lot of these other nations would do. I think that a majority of EU nations would probably cooperate with each other and stand a fairly decent chance, whereas the US and Canada, which aren't on the best terms at the moment, probably would not coordinate nearly as closely. But let's explore a hypothetical where the green flu starts in the US and talk just a little bit about how the immediate response would probably hamper the spread of the infection. Or maybe not, realistically, I don't think it would, but that's fine. So let's set the stage. Imagine the green flu begins in a major city, say New York or Los Angeles in early 2025. The virus spreads through international airports fast. Within a matter of days, it's in multiple cities across the US and around the world. At first, it's treated like any other seasonal flu. People experience mild symptoms like fever, cough, and fatigue, but then things escalate. Suddenly, hospitals are overwhelmed and the death toll climbs rapidly. I think the immediate government response would be the US government, while facing a health crisis, would probably start implementing emergency measures right off the bat. Now, if people listen to that is definitely up to debate, but I think martial law would probably be declared in major cities, but how effective would that really be? Would they manage to lock down key cities like they did with the unnamed virus that happened a couple years ago? Yeah, but maybe for only a few weeks. I think the sheer number of infected would overwhelm pretty much any military or police response. And in our world, we have FEMA. In the Left 4 Dead world, they have CETA. And I think FEMA would probably step in to create quarantine zones like we saw with CETA, but they'd probably be just about as effective as the video game's versions. If history teaches us anything, it's that panic and very, very poor coordination could lead to those safe zones failing within days, like I assume they probably would. And it's pretty easy to imagine that if a quarantine zone is overrun, there's a lot of healthy individuals there that would subsequently become infected. So, my conclusion, at least for the United States, is that realistically we are cooked. I think that parts of the population would survive. I think some carriers and people with natural immunity to the infection could very well survive. I think a lot of the government would also probably survive thanks to their fancy bunkers funded by, taxpayer dollars. But a vast majority of the country and American society would undoubtedly collapse and be gone forever. At the end of the day, if the green flu came to life today, it would be a global catastrophe unlike anything we've seen before. Sure, there would be some advantages over the Left 4 Dead world, better technology, communication, and medical knowledge, but the harsh truth is that the speed of the virus combined with human error, misinformation, and societal breakdown would make survival incredibly difficult. So, to give you guys my one word answer, no, I don't think that we would survive in 2025 if the green flu became a reality. I just don't think we have what it takes to understand a virus in a timely fashion and create containment measures that would actually be effective against such a volatile virus. So, what do you think? Are we doomed, or could we handle a Left 4 Dead style outbreak better than the survivors in the game? I want you guys to let me know down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, feel free to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel because I've been making a ton of Left 4 Dead videos lately and I'm having an absolute blast making these videos and interacting with you guys. Thank you so much for watching. It's been Payne, and I hope you guys have yourselves a fantastic day. Remember, stay hidden, smart, and fast. Just don't run into a tank.